And then what I'll do is I'll just bring the thing up that Marta sent me, and then I'll just read it through. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it, because it might be small writing for you as well. Let me just see what we can do with this. Can you see that? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So if I just go through it then, so Marta, have we got an age for this lady? Is she there?
Yes, she's 57.
57. All right. Thanks, Dwight. That's lovely. So, have we got any birth history or any of that?
No, I actually never asked, but she
Okay.
had a very traumatic childhood because her mom and her dad had Asperger's syndrome, and she thinks she has it. Her sister has it. So, like, she was terrified of her parents. But I don't know the details, what happened. And
okay. And do you know, we always see attachment trauma in autism, so that's interesting in itself.
never wanted to go through diagnosis, so she actually never had been diagnosed, but she thinks she has it, but
Yeah.
she doesn't come across as she does to me. But I'm no specialist, so I don't know.
Women are very good at hiding it. So yeah, absolutely. So right then, let me talk you through this, and then Marta can add things in, and then we'll have a look at what we might want to do. I haven't kind of done breakout rooms with this because I wasn't sure. Some people were hopping in and out anyway, so I just thought it might be something we just want to discuss between ourselves. It might be easier. So this girl, usual childhood illnesses, chickenpox, measles, mumps, thumping headaches in high school. And then in the late teens, 2 years worth of low-grade antibiotics to treat severe acne. And then worked in Kenya, where she's had amoeba, giardia, glandular fever, possible toxoplasmosis detected in the blood, chronic tonsillitis resulting in a tonsillectomy, followed by the onset of chronic fatigue and exhaustion. Which is associated with being run down from illness and then experiencing sudden trauma. And the trauma, well, as if she didn't have enough in childhood, she's got this here, being attacked by wild cattle with 6-foot horns, whatever they are. God bless her heart. So fatigue is endless throbbing, tingling in arms and legs, most intense in the wrist and forearms. Initiation of movement is the hardest, things like getting out of a chair to a bed. I take it that she's at home now then.
Yeah, she's home. She's back to UK.
Okay. So since stopping work as an occupational therapist in 2018 is much better and can manage the fatigue better, but doesn't drive herself endlessly forward. Doesn't want to stop as it's hard to get going again. And since the exhaustion started, she also had difficulty with temperature regulation, mostly feeling cold, feels cold even with a hot flush, though not as severe as it used to be. That's an interesting one in itself, isn't it? Feels cold with a hot flush, because you get centrally warm and your periphery is not great, is it? Had pneumonia, 1989, 1990, and ended up with lung scarring and bronchitis and asthma as a result. Prescribed inhalers, but improved by taking good quality aloe vera. That's another product from mucin layer as well, and that makes sense for the lungs. So jot that down somewhere, because I didn't say that. I can see why that's worked. Didn't use inhalers again for a few years, and then obviously couldn't afford the aloe vera, and the phlegm worsened, which makes sense. Tried the paleo diet. And has reduced the phlegm, so is coughing less now and barely using the inhaler. So she's done some really good stuff on her own, hasn't she, bless her. In 1993, spent 6 months in Kenya, and there was hospitalised with malaria without any long-lasting problems. And then in 94, treated for an internal tropical gut parasite from the 1993 visit to Kenya. And through that period, for the next 10 years, endless sore throats and constant chill, cold, until she started with a nutritionist in 1999, and that's when she started to improve. Depression from 1990 onwards, which became more severe in 1995. She was prescribed sertraline, but discontinued after 2 days as she felt spaced out and disconnected from her feelings. That's interesting. I've got a guy like this at the minute. Had counselling, which helped. Difficulty with depression or depressiveness most of her life, from late teens. Recently much improved, so last year or so, as the underlying trauma has been addressed to a large degree. Is that the trauma from childhood, or is that the trauma from the cattle thing? Do you know, Marta?
I don't know. I think it's just generally they were trying to address everything, but I don't know details about the counselling.
No worries, don't worry. 2001, she had a stillbirth at 28 weeks, so there we've got more trauma. And then a miscarriage 3 years later at 11 weeks. And then hormonal fertility treatment. Has she got any children then?
No, she doesn't.
Oh, bless her. All that for nothing, eh? So then 2014, diagnosed with PTSD after being threatened at work. So she's done some body-based trauma psychotherapy, which has been a good improvement. She's traumatized early in life, mother very autistic with lots of meltdowns and angry outbursts, which were terrifying, which they would be, wouldn't they? So then with prospective stillbirth in 2001, she went into freeze and a state of near hysteria, and then she believes that traumatized her until she got help in 2014-15. So, you know, she's really found her own way with this for a lot of it, hasn't she? 2019 was in burnout, so took a break from art therapy training due to burnout, and was still really getting over PTSD and coping with moving back to the UK from Ireland in 2016 and having a very pressured, under-resourced job with the health service. Say no more. We can all speak to that, can't we? HRT patches prescribed in 2019 and then moved on to tablets as patches became unavailable, and discontinued that in 2020 as she felt it was masking her feelings. So yeah, they're all disassociating her out there. She was caring for a terminally ill mother and felt she wasn't connected with what was happening. Migraines have become progressively more of a problem over the last 10 or 15 years, not sure of time frame. Can no longer eat chocolate or drink tea or coffee that is not good espresso. Other things that can trigger migraine but may also be sinus pain, too much lemon, too much coconut oil for frying, too much curry. Use Solpadeine for migraines, as paracetamol or Nurofen make it worse. Migraines have improved since starting the paleo diet. I used to get them at least monthly. That's interesting, isn't it? All of that is really interesting. Self-identifies as having Asperger's. I think the thing to think with this is, you know, they do identify themselves, and females have always been missed because this has always been a very male dominant characteristic. The extreme of maleness, I think Simon Baron-Cohen called it in 1990s. And it's only now that we're actually seeing that females have it too. So yeah, not that she needs a label, because she certainly doesn't, does she? She's looked into diagnosis but not decided to go ahead. Always had social anxiety, and that's improved a lot with therapy for PTSD. Brilliant. Sensory sensitivities such as bright lights, loud noises, sudden unexpected touch. Although I understand this could have other causes such as trauma, maybe allergies. Sleep tends to be heavy, don't remember dreams, generally over the past 10 years at least. Always been active, and prior to the onset of fatigue, had huge amounts of physical energy and strength. I still love moving and movement despite the fatigue, and like physical work, partly as it's my personality, but also because when using muscles, this masks the muscular throbbing sensation. And this can result in overdoing, as I don't want to stop feeling good. After a few hours gardening or a long walk, more than 2 hours, I need to rest a lot for the next 24 hours or so for my muscles to recover. In the past, I've taken part in sailing, horse riding, hill walking, but with a lot of recovery time needed. I'm an active type, but also a stress type, improving as I practice mindfulness and meditation. Bless her heart. So she's had a tonsillectomy that we know about. She's had a collis fracture. She's had left Achilles tendon rupture. Currently on a paleo diet, gluten and dairy free for 20 years. Mostly veg from her own allotment, good quality grass-fed meat, no sugar or alcohol. High score on the Jill Christa Moles questionnaire. GI 360 brought out blasto, Klebsiella, and very low secretory IgA. Thyroid and antibodies were all okay. B12 active 116. Vitamin D 88 and ferritin 139. They all look okay, don't they? Okay, so have you done anything with the Marta at all? Have you seen her? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. Like we done the basics, like blood sugar balance. Then we done the gut protocol with in vivo. Then we did a bit of mitochondrial support. She was on Megamark magnesium from Nutri, but that makes her like bisglycinate. It makes her feel like a bit high. She says it's like when she takes it, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's the opposite from being like feeling really tired to like being too high. So she can cope with half the dosage, but not full scope. She's on digestive enzymes and vitamin D. What else? Oh God, we've done so much. I can't even remember every single detail. But she's improved loads. But she has this like pain on the side of her head. It's constantly there. It's kind of like the top of the skull and on the sides, and that has never gone away. And she's been feeling like very stuffy headed and like sinuses in the past 2 weeks and like tired again. Now I feel like she's going backward now. Like we've seen a huge improvement, but now the past 2 weeks she's been struggling, waking up at 4 a.m., being a bit like, don't know, not herself, emotional.
Okay, that's interesting. What else was I going to ask there? Is she getting any triggers from her previous traumas? Do you know?
Well, she's in a good place now. She's retired. She remarried. Yeah. She went through divorce as well. In between all those, I think she met her husband in Ireland, and she got married. She's back in UK, retired, just painting, and she's taking some art courses. So she's not, the stress is not there anymore. And her parents are both dead, and she doesn't have that. You know, she was caring for her mom, which was exhausting, but she's in a happy place, she says now. It's
okay. Fair enough. I mean, just thinking, you know, the pain on the side of her head just rings big bells for me for a certain virus.
Okay.
And that certain virus tends to come out when we've either had a stressful incident or a period of stress. There's a few nods going on here. So that's why I'm asking, that was all. So there's obviously something going on there. Well, and that was the thing that hit me more than anything around the migraines. So in terms of just to get as a big handle on this, in terms of the gut support, you said you've done some in vivo stuff.
Yeah, we did GI 360, and then the in vivo we did 3 months. Is it no 8 weeks of? She was on 4 different supplements. I have to dig out the notes now too.
Did you retest? Do you know if a gut is?
No, we haven't, because she actually came to me with IBS symptoms first, and this all came out. It's like, oh my God.
Ah, okay.
So I also thinking I'm getting IBS type of client, but then like this is just like, no, we haven't retested because digestive symptoms are pretty much gone. They're all gone. And I'm not sure if she wants to spend another £300 to retest.
Yeah. Okay, that's all right then. Okay.
I thought about doing the mold test, but it's it's expensive, so I don't actually know I don't know what to do with her now, to be honest.
I guess it depends on how much she's got to play with the mold. The one I tend to use Biolab for most of my testing. I don't know what everybody else is doing, but the reason I use Biolab is they don't bang 50 quid on for the practitioner, so it does make it more affordable for the patient. And what they can't do goes to the doctor's laboratory, but they use Great Plains, who I think are a really good testing company, and again they're good with the prices. So that mold test, I know how much is theirs for the GPL detox. It's about £180, I think. So it's still
Biolab, okay.
yeah,
It was 300.
yeah. So you just have to sign up with Biolab, and you get.
I am actually, but
Oh yeah, right. Okay. So yeah, that's just. Yeah, of course, Nigel. I didn't hear you then. It was really quiet. Yeah,
sorry, I had my microphone at the top of my head.
Sorry, what did you say?
I think the 185 was just for the main oat test, I think, because I've just been looking at that. So I think the mold one is a bit more than that, probably a couple of hundred or something.
Yeah, it's not much more though, is it? They're all about the 200 mark. The doctors, the Great Plains. So it's worth a thought, because I mean, you'll pick mold up on the organic acids, but I've just had one that I didn't actually do the testing for, but she came in with an organic acid and a mold. I don't know, she'd done her off her own bat and then come in because she couldn't interpret them, bless her. And the mold, it picked up 3 molds on the mold test, but none of it came up on the oat, which was quite interesting. I've never had that before. And they were done at the same time. She did them both together because she got a deal. So I think you're probably better off.
Sorry. So do you always test for mold? Can we just would you always test rather than just use the fuminic acid just in case
I tend to think if it's there in the history and it's very clear in the history and they can't afford the testing, what do? Leave them? I don't. I just start to treat it anyway, and I just go gently. I mean, the thing you get from the oat test is you get the 9 different types of mold, where they're coming from, what foods to take out, but they come in every different food imaginable. So if you start following all the food advice, you're going, this person's not eating anything, and then they get fear of food. So I tend not to go that way, if I'm honest. I might take the grains out, which we would anyway. But if it's very clear that she's got mold problems and she's got all this sensory stuff going on and the central nervous system stuff, I definitely would. I think I definitely would bind it up, because if you've done all the gut work. And she started
and she's she goes twice a day or once a day. She's sometimes she says she feels like there is a lump in her lower gut on the left side, and if she has that sensation, she would have loose stools on that day or the day after. So I don't know what that lump means really. Like when she says she feels like there is a lump, kind of lower gut left side.
Ileocecal valve? No, that's.
It's only recently.
Right side.
It's only
right side, isn't it?
I don't know, so. But digestion is good. She really doesn't get any digestive symptoms at all. It's more like feeling sinusy and the fatigue. Brain fog this week as well. But I have tested her for I did the Zinzino test with her, and her omega-6 actually came up a bit raised.
Right, yeah. It often does on the Zinzino test, but and I question, this is just me, you can take this or leave this, I question when they've got a test and then they are selling a product on the back of the test. I do question the validity of it, because obviously there's the selling side of it. I do like the research that they're doing, and I like the fact that they're concentrating on the polyphenols and the fact that that mechanism. But then the one of the experiences I had with when my kid, he started with the seizures, right, and I was at the stage where I'd just listened to Patricia Kane in London, where she did a whole day on fatty acids, and she was mind-blowing. And I came home and I thought, I need to do that. I need to do that fatty acid test. But I couldn't afford it. It was like 400 and something quid. And we just didn't have the money then. You know, we were both low earners and all my money was going on ion courses. And so what I did was I did the biolab test, and his came back with really high omega-6, no omega-3. And I thought, that's ridiculous, because I've been supplementing omega-3 all the way through ion. There's something not quite right here. Even I knew that, and I was only just out of training. And so I did find the money, and I did do the Kennedy Krieger test. I think Patricia Kane got me at half price or something. And when that came back, it come back that he had absolutely no omega-6 whatsoever. And his omega-3, his DHA was off the scale high. And that was aggravating his brain, because that is his brain growth and maturation. And that was exacerbating his seizures. So I was then in a dilemma. I'd got these two test results. So I spoke to Patricia at length and to Damien. And I was saying to them, well, you know, the omega-6 research says we cannot give omega-6 to a kid with epilepsy because it exacerbates, particularly if it's temporal lobe. His wasn't. It was generalized idiopathic they diagnosed him with. And she just said to me, you need to talk to Alex, is it Richardson, who did all the original research on the omegas. And when I spoke to Alex, because I tracked her down and asked her about the research that she did that led to that notification going on, like evening primrose oil, etc., she actually said that what wasn't obvious in that study was that those people in that trial were all on antipsychotics, which lower seizure threshold. And so that was another factor that wasn't in the mix. And so we couldn't really say that omega-6 was a big problem. And I just went, holy crap. And that's supposed to be a landmark piece of research, according to what I'm reading. So I went back to Patricia and she said, that's why I told you to ask her yourself. And so what we did was we gave him evening primrose oil, and it was at massive amounts. It was oral. We didn't do anything IV to him at all. But we gave him 1,300 milligram capsules, and we gave him 8 a day. And I had this crazy people on this side going, do not do that, you'll kill him. And the other person on this side going, get on with it, because you need to get his seizures under control. And I'm not kidding you, in 6 weeks, his seizures went completely. And they stayed away for 4.5 years until he went off the ketogenic diet, which was the next thing we did. So, you know, and I can only measure those two against each other, but they measure something very differently. And I think that's the case with all of these fatty acid tests. I think you've got to be sure of what you're measuring. Some people say you have to do red cell fatty acids, and others say you don't. So I think as long as you feel comfortable with what you're testing, then you go with it. The Zinzino test I have used with some of my autistic people, and they have signed up for the 6 months thing to, you know, to get the Zinzino oils. And the test results have come back looking a heck of a lot better, I have to say, for the high polyphenol stuff. But they haven't necessarily made a lot of progress in their overall projection. And these are all kind of autistic type people. So I'm not sure about it, to be honest. And that's why I kind of pulled out of it, that and the fact that the pyramid tell it. And I wasn't bothered about that to start with, because I thought, well, if it's a good product, you know, I'll find a way around that. So I think it's hard with, especially with the fatty acid test. I think it's a hard one. I don't think we'll ever find what's right. You know, we've got to go with what our truth is. So can I?
I've been seeing a lot of cases pretty similar to this, with traumas, lots of co-infections, molds, the parasites, and at first it feels like, and they come here feeling like they're never going to be able to break through it. But one of the key things that I'm finding with all of them is that there's definitely bile flow issues, and I'm using some wild strawberry for that, as well as bioresonance. But for me, it's really hard because I'm doing bioresonance, because I can test all of these in one session and identify, this is what we need to do first, because this is the toughest thing. Even when we're talking about fatty acids, I would have a selection of fatty acids here, or tell them to bring the ones that they are using so I can test how effective that is for them. So I'll always try and get people to bring supplements for them to show them what's working or not. But there's such a huge load here that it's starting to work with that nervous system is going to be absolutely key. And then working on liver and bile duct gently. I see these cases all the time, and I have been saying to these women that are coming in through the door, I'm gonna have to write studies on you guys, because I'm seeing this too often and too many. I want to be able to put a whole protocol together to help them, because we're working through it and they're loving it. And yeah, I haven't put it all together yet, but I could talk through steps by steps. But I'm also going to be going off to a meeting in a minute as well.
Don't worry. I mean, to be honest, Sharmila, you're saying exactly the same thing that Patricia Kane said about 10 years ago. She's saying the same. It's all about bile flow, and certainly for me, and I kind of fit this category as well. For me, it was all about gallstones and bile flow. Yeah. And interestingly,
bile flow.
The bile flow. I am also this person. Yeah. Before I was seeing Mary, I had the worst headaches with my sinusitis. I had no idea how much that was linked to what was going on in my gut and what was going on in my liver and gallbladder. So many people come here telling me that they've got gut issues, or they're feeling nauseous because of their stomach, and I'm looking at it going, it's got nothing to do with your gut right now. This is actually more liver symptoms that you're getting. But it's that bile duct. If I could show you, if we were all sitting here looking at this and testing it right now, I could show you where it would just get linear hits, because it's happening in men as well. I have men also, but more in women. And you know, she said that she was getting that monthly. It's all, again, it's hormonal. Yeah. And that bile duct, because the liver is going to be so congested with all those parasites that she's got, and that blockage now to the left, I reckon she's got some parasites that have possibly moved, and she's got now a problem here on the left all of a sudden, and it's gonna, she'll feel it sometimes and not feel it sometimes, because these are just classic. I've got kids from 19-year-old girls at university who come to see me with the same issues, to I don't know how old they are, 70, 80-year-old women who've been having these problems.
Oh no, I thought we've dealt with those parasites, but oh gosh.
It's quite likely that there's viruses still in there, mold and parasites. And the thing is, I'm seeing that it says thyroid and antibodies are okay.
Yeah, all good.
My experience, especially with the temperature that she was having, she was still feeling cold. If I was to test thyroid, I'd probably find a whole host of things that are affecting it, because we can look to see, is Epstein-Barr affecting it, or is something else affecting it? So I'm very cautious with taking a test at face value and thinking about what we're looking at with pyroluria and things like that. We're looking at obstruction in detoxification. So often things are sitting inside the cells and they are not going to be passing into the bloodstream for us to even pick up in tests. And that's where part of the problem lies, that we want to be able to help and we can't actually see. Even with mercury, so many kids are getting mercury problems and then pyroluria because their mum had fillings, or she didn't even have fillings, but her the grandmother had it, and these children have still got mercury in them, but we can't detect it straight away because it's not even leaking out of the cells because of obstructed detoxification. So it's huge, but these are exciting cases to break through and watch these women calm down, literally calm down.
How would you know if it's locked in a cell? What's like, does the bioresonance does it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I met Mike and I asked him to introduce you to me because he talked to me about you and I told him what I was doing and I said, I need to meet her. People who you're supposed to meet, sometimes you just meet randomly. But yeah, absolutely. Bioresonance does. And I went to Germany to an autism conference. And we were already doing it here, but I found a psychiatrist, a medical doctor, who was using bioresonance with all of his all neurodiversity and neurodegenerative disease to identify things that were not being picked up in other tests, and then helping to make such a huge difference for these clients. And they were all ages, again, men and women, but a lot of women.
Oh God.
But I hope that's a sign of relief to know that there is going to be things that we can do, but I'm going to have to head off. But I would love to chat more, and I need to start writing the protocols to see how I've gone through it with all of these different ladies. But I always, I had one this week and I had to focus on her bile duct and liver, and it was congested with toxins from mold, parasites, virus. It's that Epstein-Barr and other viruses she had too. But I'm going to shut up because I've spoken enough.
No, it's fine. Shamila, it was wonderful, honestly. Yeah, but you two get together afterwards. It'll be great. It'll be a match made in heaven.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Bless you. Okay.
But thank you. I can't wait to catch up on all the other stuff, but sorry, I've got to shoot off. And now I've given my 2 pennies or 10.
Oh, all right. So I mean, yeah, that's a great starting point, Marta, for you two to get together. I mean, the thing I was seeing with the neurological pain, because that's neurological pain down the side of the face, was the herpes virus. So that's another one to consider there, and that is definitely stress related, because that was one of mine, and it just comes up every time you've had a stressful bell, or you've been triggered, or you've overdone it. You know, it's wonderful, is that one. But I mean, you've done some great stuff. So you've obviously done a lot of gut cleansing so far. And did you do some kind of metabolic support before you started? Adrenals, HPA axis, all of that. Did that need doing?
We did a little bit, yes. And also, what else we did? The liver support. I didn't actually get any symptoms on the questionnaire, like liver-wise.
Did you not?
No, I'm still using the one we had at the college, so I didn't really. There's nothing on it.
Okay, nothing in profile 2, the gallbladder one.
I need to double check, but no, I can't recall that there was. It was in my. Oh God, we have to do a lot of work there. It was like more to blood sugar balance and more like digestive issues, and there wasn't anything else.
I mean, what Sharmila just said is basically what I said about I didn't say it in such wonderful way that Sharmila did, but this is what I learned from Patricia Kane. Until what Patricia Kane says, when you've got this myriad of stuff going on, you've got the anxiety. You can look at this. You can look at pyroluria in a completely different light now, because if you've got poor bile flow, you haven't got peristalsis, because you haven't got protection from SIBO, because bile is domestos for the small intestine, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, she's like had no issues with going to the toilet twice a day, once a day. She's never
right. Okay. So you know,
she kind of like doesn't fit any specific. It's just like all those random symptoms. I'm sure there's a connection, but it's just like, where do I go? It's just like fits a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it's like
But you kind of put, what we do is we give them supplements because that's the way we've been taught. But realistically, when you look at this as a pyroluria case, I'm just looking at, is it safe to treat her for pyroluria? And at this minute, I'm thinking no, because she's toxic, really toxic. And I think you've got to do some of the peripheral anti-tox stuff first. You've got to do the Epsom salts baths. You've got to look at.
Yeah, done that.
Sorry?
We've done it.
Never mind, you've done it. It's a lifetime thing, Marta.
Yeah.
It's not I've done it and it's finished. You know, because she's got a sulfation problem, she's got to address that every day of her life until she gets better, and then she can slowly peter it off. These are not cases where you can just do a 3-month protocol and they're done. Because they're lifelong, and they've got a lifelong detox problem. And bile is part of that issue, because if she's not detoxifying properly through the bowel, through the liver and the bile, and the toxins are not getting into the stool and be excreted, she's going to just hold them all on, and every time you do anything, she's going to get well for a little bit, and then she's going to fall over again, which looks, I think
that's
happening. So I think you've got, I mean, anybody else chip in here, it doesn't have to be me, but what I'm looking at here, I'm seeing herpes big time in that trigeminal neuralgia stuff that's going on, and I don't like that at all, because that lives in the central nervous system and it gets aggravated at nothing. Epstein-Barr, as Sharmila said, could be there, obviously. So like you've said about the mold, I would be looking at the mold and clearing that out. And with the binders, you might want to consider things like maybe the Toxaprevent for the mold particularly, or one of the core, one of the, what they call it, core ones, particularly for mold, but then to use humic and fulvic acid for the viruses. So you've got 2 binders in there, but they're doing 2 different things. Anybody else chip in, please? But I think you've got to bind some of this toxicity up, and you've got to get a detox in. So you've got to do at least Epsom salts baths. You've got to do them at least 3 times a week, if not nightly, to try and help her with that. Maybe far infrared sauna, maybe foot bath, depending where she's going to fit. Or you've got to talk to Sharmila, because Sharmila can detox her with the machine. You know, and
where's she based, Sharmila?
She's based in North London. Where are you, Marta?
I'm Manchester, but the lady from Preston Way, I think.
Right. Okay. Is the lady from Preston?
Clitheroe.
Oh, Clitheroe, right. Okay.
Yeah, she's
so who's her nearest? There's a lady in Blackpool, and if it's not the lady in Blackpool, then the nearest one is Mary, who's in Malton near Pickering. That's nearly an hour from Leeds, 50 minutes from Leeds.
I'm sure she would travel. She's retired. She doesn't like have a busy life now. So I think if you know,
I would put her in touch with Mary, Mary Butcher, and I would work alongside Mary. You have to watch Mary a bit. She's lovely, don't get me wrong. She knows her stuff inside out. She's a nurse, a homeopath, and a bioresonance practitioner. And she teaches bioresonance around the UK, so there's nobody better. But she does sometimes interfere with the nutrition programme, because the patient's not telling her what she's doing with you. She'll go and send them to get her own supplements or something, and some of them are crap. You know, but apart from that, I just warn the patient before they go, you're working with me for the nutrition, her for the homeopathy and the bioresonance. And then what she does is she does a 3-hour session where they just sit on a lovely comfy chair, and the bioresonance machine checks them for Schumann resonance, checks the chakras are all balanced, checks to see if they've got e-smog, and it clears all that before you can do anything. So if you've got a ton of e-smog, the machine can't see anything. And then it goes through systematically all the systems of the body based on what she's told them. So I've got these headaches. Mary will immediately say that's herpes, and she'll go in and she'll check for herpes, but the machine will check for every other virus that affects the nervous system. And then Mary will say, right, you've got this virus, this, and this. She'll make notes of them all, and then she'll add the vibrational frequency of each parasite that needs to be shifted, and then the machine will send that vibration to the body. And then when that's been done and completed, then it goes into a detox. So it detoxes all the crap that's come from the die-off of those particular bugs. It clears all of that, and then she gives a homeopathic remedy. Because how the machine works is, it's working on vibrational frequencies, because we're all vibrational beings, and it's killing off the viruses, and it kills off the viruses. So you've got the viruses up here right now, and you've got the immune system down here. And so what the idea of how she works is to get the immune system and the viruses balanced, so your Pac-Man can come in and do that and eat them all up. But that takes time, doesn't it? Because, you know, when she's been in fight or flight all the way through her childhood because she's got attachment trauma, then she's stuck in that scenario. She might not even recognize that she's still stuck in it, and that might need looking at itself. But so the machine will do that, and then Mary gives a homeopathic remedy to support the immune system, so that the homeopathic remedy is telling the body what to do, basically. But, you know, and it will work with your supplements as well, whatever you're giving her, so it'll be fine. But that's kind of how it works. And then each time she goes, if there's a succession of treatments, she'll go deeper and deeper with the treatment. And it might be that she needs a succession of treatments to get rid of these viruses, because she might have more than we can even test for. I can't remember the last time I tested for viruses for that reason. So you'd get a good thing going with this person, you know, by doing both, and then you can concentrate on your stuff. But that's because there's so much going on here.
Yeah, it sounds like she needs to go and see that lady.
And I think that, and then you can work on the detox, so you can do the binding up, which will support her between her bioresonance treatments, because it might take you 2 or 3 months to get an appointment with Mary, because she's really busy.
Oh.
I'm even considering getting a machine myself to help her out, because this is just fascinating to me. So she would probably see Mary every 4 to 6 weeks initially. And then in between times, you're doing your binding up, and you're supporting her with the nutritional support, and you're making sure her immune system's coming back online and stuff to, you know, to help her keep her energy up. So it's a match made in heaven, really. But from your perspective, I would be supporting that bile flow. I'd be looking at beta TCP. I'd just try that and just see what happens, because you can have the best, when you're on a nutritional program, you can have the best stool going, and you can still have sluggish bile. And if she's got sluggish bile, I mean, let's face it, with that trauma history, she's got to have suppressed anger, even if that's only at herself, because kids internalize all that and they think it's their fault when the parents are scrapping. You know, and when you've got autistic families, believe you me, those parents scrap like hell. They're very dysfunctional, and so if she's grown up in that, she's blamed herself, and you don't know, only the therapist will know that, but that's generally what happens. She's got all that in her liver and in her gallbladder, and she's holding on to it, and that won't help her detox either. So when you give a beta TCP or even the Live GB from Designs for Health, either of those two would work this system. I would try one of those two, and I would just see how she goes with it. And if she starts to show emotional stuff coming out, then you know she's not healed all her trauma. We can heal it in our heads because we've done all the analysis paralysis stuff with other people, without other people, but we still hold it in the energy body, and the evidence is there that the organs are not working. So she's holding it in her body. And that's what I'm saying. That's the difference between, yeah, I've dealt with that, We've dealt with it in the head, but it's in the energy body. So the bioresonance would help to clear all that because of the way it works with the body. The NSA would help as well, and the nearest NSA practitioner is Rachel Talbot, who's based in...
She's Manchester based, is she?
She is, yeah, and she's absolutely brilliant. She's a lovely practitioner. And both of those would give her an estimation of how much she's cleared and how much needs clearing. And she might, she might be clearing transgenerational trauma at this time. That's what I'm seeing big time in my autistic kids now. And a lot of them are actually going psychotic because they're doing that and they don't realise what they're doing because they have no idea, bless them. So from that perspective, it is supporting a pyroluria, but to give a B6 and zinc at this point in time, I think you'd just release heavy metals on top of all of that. So I would massively detox her.
So with this questionnaire you mentioned on yesterday, and what's it called? And she scored pretty much, there's 27 questions and she was over 20, I think 22. So everything, she said yes, pretty much everything.
Yeah, absolutely she would be. And that's the thing, but you can't, because she's toxic, what you can't do is just throw pyroluria supplements at her because you'll make her more toxic because you'll wind up a methylation.
Yeah.
And right now a methylation's probably slowing down, which is partly why she's tired, lethargic, because she can't make that work because the body don't want to make more sick cells. And so you start putting B6, zinc, B2, etc. in and winding up the methylation, you make her sicker because she can't clear that through the transsulfuration pathway.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to work on the transsulfuration pathway. I would change her digestive enzymes to Houston no phenol. They're designed for autistic kids.
What's the brand again?
Houston, Houston. You can only get them from Mandy Mart, which is MANDIMART. She's just a mum of an autistic family who buys really superb supplements in for autistic families and sells them virtually at cost. She makes a bit of money for her, a pocket, but she doesn't do things like practitioner rates or anything. But what she's doing is a superb job, so she's worth supporting. But the Houston, when you go on the website and order them, there's a little booklet specifically for the Houston enzymes, and it tells you which enzyme to use for which child or which adult. But the beauty of the Houston no phenol is it helps her to metabolize everything through sulfation because it's specifically for the sulfation pathway. And the no phenol side is because what we were saying about the zinzino oils and the need for the polyphenols to get the fatty acids across the gut wall cell membrane. If she can't do phenols because she's got a sulfation problem, then she needs a digestive enzyme that helps her do that. Otherwise, she's not getting benefit from zinzino oils either.
Yeah, she's on digestive enzymes. I think Designs for Health.
Yeah, but they're not the no phenol. That's what I'm saying. It's the phenol aspect that's really important. So I would switch her to that, to be honest.
Okay.
And I definitely would work on a gallbladder and just see what results you get from that, because you've got to detox her. You might, she might just sail it, and she might just, she might have a bit of diarrhea for a few weeks, and then she might just suddenly come up. But if she's not able to metabolize the fats that you're giving her because her bile's sluggish, then she's not going to make hormones and she's not going to detoxify. So that's another thing. And it's, and then all they do is they, what's the word? They just oxidize, don't they? And then they're causing more problems.
Yeah. Oh God.
And you're doing a good thing. But I mean, it's transsulfuration at the end of the day, Marta. It's not difficult. Honestly, it's not. It's just knowing it and knowing that you've got to detox her first. And I think because you've done a lot of gut work, you then will be in, once you've cleared the mold, if you clear the mold first, this is my thoughts, and anybody else, for God's sake, please chip in. If you clear the mold first, you've then got a better idea of what our central nervous system is doing, because the mold's terrible in the central nervous system. And then you can start to see, well, has she got, is the herpes thing going, or, you know, what I'm perceiving to be herpes, is that going? You know, is her overall central nervous system more balanced? Because she'll notice it when it starts to balance. And then you can look at, okay, viral load. What are we going to do about the viral load? And by that time, you probably have an appointment with Mary or Sharmila or whoever you're going to choose to go with. But Sharmila and Mary, between them, they've got the brains of Britain when it comes to bioresonance and homeopathy. So they're really good allies, not just for this patient, but for all of them, Marta, because you'll get a lot like this once you've attracted one.
I don't want to.
Well, you're just an attract magnet. But yeah, so what else can we do for her? Because what else has she got on? I think
She got so much better. I think she came to me, I don't know, we've been together, like working together 4 months, and then like the past 2 weeks, like what happened? Like she seems to be like regressing. Like 2 weeks she had a horrible time, and now she's okay again, the energy is back, and it's like we've not really even like seen each other in the past, like I don't know, I'm just like, oh
yeah, that might not be her stuff, that might be trauma. Sorry, Rachel, were you saying something?
No, that was okay. I didn't want to sort of butt in at all.
Go on, come in, you're fine.
No, I was just wondering, maybe this is just an idea to sort of put in there about the sort of sinuses and things and the mold, whether have you tried anything like X-Clear, you know, to like a nasal spray just to break biofilms or anything like that? Might be
no, we haven't tried. What's the product called?
It's X-Clear. It's XLEAR. I think Amazon. But I don't think it's available through Natural Dispensary, but it's got xylitol in it, so it helps to break the biofilms. And then
I was about to just ask if she had the jab. She's been double jabbed.
When did that happen? Because we're seeing a lot of post-vaccine histamine type responses. And what's coming to me when I'm hearing your case, I'm really thinking about, because I use the kind of, I've done a lot of work with the cogence immunology and understanding the balance of the immune system. And what's coming to me, what I'm hearing here is that she's very Th2 dominant, and using things to kind of support that kind of Th1, Th2 balance is so important. And obviously the vagus nerve as well, and all the kind of vagus nerve work that Anne talked about. The other thing that we've used as well is a bit of transcutaneous vagal nerve stimulation.
I think she was jabbed like probably Jan-Feb time, beginning of the year.
Yeah, so it's probably a little bit late, but yeah, I think that for me, what I'm hearing is the Th2 dominance, and mold is one of the biggest triggers for the Th2. So working to kind of calm the Th2 response, and then finding a way to. The other thing with mold is if she's currently exposed, you're just never gonna get her better.
She's not in the current house, but when she used to care for her mom, there was a mold in that house, and she goes every 12 weeks to like sort the house out. So I think when she's like there and comes back, she's a bit like kind of, she takes a few steps back.
Yeah, well, that tells you, isn't it? And if you start detoxing somebody that's constantly exposed to mold, she's not going to do well. She's going to really struggle. So until she's clear of her mom's house, it's just balancing, and you know, bioresonance can help. And the Th2 dominance, if you're very Th2 dominant, you can't fight viruses and bacteria. You just can't do it. So you could, you know, I don't know very much about bioresonance. I haven't really looked into it, but that's probably why the viruses and everything is so big in her, and the parasites as well, because parasites is what your Th2 is trying to kill off as well. So that's what I'm hearing in your case. So something to consider. But especially the mold, I think it's worth getting it treated or whatever she needs to do with it.
Thank you. So I was expecting to see much more on the stool, but her score came as 2, and there was like blasto was raised and Klebsiella, but nothing else. Like,
yeah, I don't really tend to see the mold in the stool, but I do the mycotoxin, and again, there's a bit whether or not the mycotoxin test is showing or that.
Yeah,
But I think for me, it's just helps you to kind of, and for them to realize, well, actually it's going through your system and it is part of your whole picture. And then getting somebody like Pure Maintenance or whoever you use to actually just assess your house, because the research is saying like 90% of our British houses are full of mold anyway, whether or not we can see it.
Yeah, it can be, doesn't have to be visible
itself. And if she's just sensitive to it, then you're working in a difficult environment.
Yeah, anything like perfumes, any smells, anything. She's really, really sensitive to all sorts of like chemicals and yeah.
Yeah, so I know Anne was talking about the DNRS system. Anne, have you heard of the Gupta program?
Yeah, and I love Gupta, but we've just found that the DNRS just works quicker.
Well, fair enough.
But he's good. He's great. I mean, yeah, he's fabulous. I mean, at the end of the day, Indra, it's horses for courses, isn't it? It's what people resonate with.
Yeah,
you know, I can stand here and say, well, you could do that, and that, but whatever that client will resonate with is what will work.
Yeah, you just need to have an arsenal and go, we need you to work on your vagus. Here are the different things you need to do. Which one do you want to start off with, and go with that. So yeah, that kind of work might be the very first thing she does before any of that stuff. Even if it isn't trauma, it's just finding ways to get into the parasympathetic.
When would you use EMDR? When would you sort of think that might be an option, or would you kind of just discuss it through with somebody and you know, when there's been traumas, and you know, because it's difficult, isn't it, to know whether someone has got PTSD or not, because everybody's really different, aren't they, and what might have triggered that. I just wondered what you
I would say with the EMDR, if it's a person who is sensitive to the 21st century, as we call it, where you know you can't give them a single supplement, and they react to the, you know, your essential oil diffuser and chemicals in their environment and whatever they put in the washing machine, and they're sensitive to all of that, even when some of it's natural, then they're definitely a DNRS person. And what I do is I send them to the DNRS website and I say, just do the quiz on there. And if it looks, you know, if it's you, I mean, you generally know it's them because you just look at the stuff and you see it. If they test out positive, I then would say to them, by all means, buy the online program, but at least budget for one appointment with a instructor, coach, whatever you call them, because I think they need to get the technique right. Because with all these programs, and Gupta's is the same. I love what Gupta's done; it's superb. But if you're teaching someone the technique and you're not teaching them it face to face, they're learning it in a program. If they don't get it exactly right, they get so frustrated because they're not getting well, and yet they've not got the technique, and it's sad, isn't it? You know, to think that they've gone through all of that, and you know, I just think, you've got to do at least one with somebody. But it's always the people who are super sensitive, who react to everything, who you can't get a supplement into them, because it is all limbic kindling, and then the brain is just on fire and the vagus nerves doing nothing.
I've never heard the word limbic kindling, but I love that. It's interesting. I'm going to look up that.
Yeah, absolutely, Indra. I mean, I love Nikki. She's done some really good stuff. You know, with this kind of person, I would also give them, now Wendy's taken over the emotional detox program, I would also give this person the link to Wendy Myers' emotional detox, and I'd give them the link to Nikki Sky's Ascension program, basically because certainly in the Ascension program we're seeing spontaneous remission of all kinds of diseases that only Joe Dispenza's ever seen. And I've seen that on his retreats because I've done a number of his retreats, but I've never seen it, you know, in that category. But that's not for everybody, because there's a huge spiritual side to that as well, because it's doing all 5 levels. And so, you know, it'll be a tiny minority who will buy into that. But the emotional detox program, it's a full program, which is nutrition, lifestyle, detox, emotional detox. But it's about them learning it all from video, how they got their preconditioning, what type of preconditioning they've got, where that's come from. If it's attachment trauma, you need to do this. If it's birth trauma, you need to do this. And with her, with autism, there's always attachment trauma. You can't get away from it. So I would send her to Ross Rosenberg's work, and I would say, just have a look at Ross Rosenberg's work. And, you know, she might come back and say, no, you know, and that might mean that she's either not ready, or it might mean that she has dealt with that. But if she's either not ready or she's dealt with it, that's fine. But if she hasn't dealt with it, it will ring a bell and she'll go, I need to do that. And, you know, she'll buy his online course and do that, or may or may not. But I think with the autism side, there's always that, but there's always the gut-brain link. There's always the pyroluria. And it's working out the detox. It's sorting the detox out, because she'll also have toxins harbored from when you've done the gut work as well, because it's not come through properly, which is another reason why they get well, because they're on the supplements and the gut's trying to rebalance, and so you get some resolution of symptoms from that. But when you stop that, because everything else around the periphery, the detox, the mental health, the emotional health, because that, and the detox, because that hasn't been addressed, because you haven't known to do that, well, the bugs will just keep coming back, which is why you'll have a parasite test and you'll think you've done the parasites, but they'll still be there because they'll be hiding somewhere just for the next opportunity. And actually, one of the things to ask her rather than do a test is check when the next full moon is and ask her if she was any worse at full moon, because I can guarantee you parasites are up and running at full moon. And, you know, it sounds a bit of a stupid thing to ask and a bit off the wall, but it's always something really good to ask them, you know, the more.
Yeah, I did ask her in the past because she was like having those itchy spells, but that's gone, and can't remember when was it. So then we did a stool test, and yeah, it sounded like something.
Here's a question for you. You know, when you do your stool test for your parasites, do you make them purge? And because I know the stool testing companies don't ask you to do that, but I always give mine a lot of magnesium to make them purge, because the thing with the parasites is if they're like the yeast that's gone into mycelial form, they don't want to come out of there because they're happy, aren't they? So, you know, if they've got a nice leaflet, ileocecal valve to hang on to, or they've got a nice bit of leaky gut they can just put a finger hole in, they're going to hang on for grim life, aren't they? Because they're going to be annihilated if they come out. They're cleverer than us. And so if you give magnesium a fairly decent dose and you make them purge, then you'll get more chance of finding the parasites in the stool.
Oh, I see. I never knew about that.
Yeah, and nobody tells you that's the thing. I mean, I only learn it off the cuff from somebody. Don't you do that? No. But yeah, they're just thoughts. I mean, if you're testing, you want to get the maximum out of your money, don't you? But yeah, I think she needs a massive detox.
You don't need to worry about high ferritin levels, because you mentioned before that iron is needed for. We've not done the full iron panel, so I don't know what's happening with the other markers. But ferritin is quite high. It's like nearly.
Will a GP do an iron panel for you?
No, not hers. She just doesn't even want to go to her GP because they're not interested, and she feels like she can't even talk to them.
Right, okay. I'm just thinking of a nice, you know, cost-effective way to do it. Bless her.
We only know the ferritin. We don't know the serum and TIBC, and we don't know saturation, so we don't know. But the ferritin was high.
I'm not sure I'd be that concerned about it, because I think all the markers are going to be all over the place until you sort that toxicity out.
Okay.
I would get a GP to retest it at some point afterwards. You know, so it's saving her money, because at the end of the day, everything costs, doesn't it? So I think I would do the mold detox next and get rid of that, and then I would see how she is, and talk to Sharmila by all means, because like I said, Sharmila's got a great brain around this, and decide whether you do the bioresonance side, or decide whether you could still put something like the black oxygen organics or any humic and fulvic acid, Amrita have got a lovely one. Is it called something earth that's liquid? And so you could put that in all the time anyway as a binder and as an antiviral, and it's gentle enough not to cause a lot of problems.
What's it called again?
I think the one at Amrita is called something earth or earth mother or something, it's called something like that. But it's in a big, if you just type in humic acid or fulvic acid at Amrita, it'll only bring up about 3 products because they haven't got very many. And it comes in a litre bottle and it looks like you're drinking soil, and you are really, because it's just peat, isn't it? At the end of the day. But peat is so nutrient dense, it's untrue, and so antiviral. And you could put something like that in, which you're going to be using both as a binder and as an antiviral. But then I'd use the Toxiprevent alongside that. I certainly found for me, Marta, and I'm not saying she's like me, but she's got a lot of, you know, like Shamila said, she's got a lot of similarities here. When I came back from the NDE stuff with the mast cell, I had to take binders for nearly 4 years.
Wow.
And part of the reason for that is the original mold insult come from childhood, because we lived next to an ice cream factory, which was like, and we lived in a little cottage that didn't even that had an outside loo and, you know, a coal fire, so we had no central heating or anything. So that was my kind of starting life, and I knew I always had a mold problem. And then I had a few big insults where I went to stay in hotels that were moldy because I was in the basement and couldn't get a room change. And then when I went to Seattle, that was it. But I think to be fair, when I went to Seattle, we had moved into my dad's property. My dad had gone into a home and we were paying him rent to try and not to have to sell his home. But we put a shower in and the shower wasn't fitted properly. So between a stud partition wall, the connections on the back of the shower were not fitted properly and it was leaking. And for 5 years, we were looking for a leak from somewhere because we smelt it in the bathroom and we didn't know what the heck it was. And we had plumbers out and everything, and we couldn't find a thing until one day we came home and the whole house was flooded because the connection had just come off completely. And at that point, we had to take 3 walls down, the floor up, the lintel had completely disintegrated that was holding the wall up. And we had to have the mold people in, and that was the reason I had to stay on the binders all that time, to clear all that. And I can honestly tell you, when the people came in from the northeast to clear all that, I wasn't happy with the work, and I was staying out of the way and just leaving them the keys, and I wasn't happy with the work. And so one day I particularly stayed to make them do it properly. And because I'd stayed, I got a massive insult, and 3 o'clock the next morning, I can't tell you what my nervous system was doing. I was through the roof with anxiety. And it was because I wasn't taking a binder at that time. I'd just taken a month off, I think. You know, but I think there's a lot of value in binders. If you talk to people like John Roberts, the mercury-free dentist in Huddersfield, he says everybody should be on a binder every day because there's so much toxicity out there that we need to mop it all up. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that because I don't think we should take stuff we don't need.
Is it safe for kids as well?
Sorry?
Is it safe for the kids, the humic acid?
Yeah, it's lovely for kids, absolutely. Yeah, and I would use that in preference to most things for kids, to be honest. Yeah, so I think she just needs a massive detox at this point in time, and then have a look and see what you're left with. But you've got to do the things like Epsom salts baths, consider whether she'll do far infrared sauna, or, you know, go into a local sauna if she's got one. They're all open again now. But it's what will resonate with her, what she's prepared to do.
I think anything now, she said that, like, yeah, she will do whatever she needs to do. She's like,
I think if you detox her, you probably find a lot of these bugs will start to just go into remission on their own, because they're not, you know, they're there because, like Indra says, the immune system's on its tail. And the body's so toxic, so, you know, it's all TH2, isn't it?
Yeah, she used to catch every single bug, like she's constantly cold, but like since being in lockdown, she's not had that. So she's quite happy not to like be going out.
Does she exercise? Because that's really good for detox as well. That's why people feel so much better when they exercise.
She does a lot of gardening and walks, but she doesn't do anything like, she's still like, if she does too much a day, then she will have to rest 24 hours because her body's just can't deal with too much exercise and movement.
Is she doing rebounding?
What's that?
Rebound therapy, because if she's got all this toxicity, what's her lymph doing? All these bugs will be sat in her lymph as well, because the lymph
she was doing dry brushing, and but I'm not sure if she's still doing it, because she we've covered that on one session, but I don't think she's doing this regularly. Maybe she did, but
see, these are all lifestyle things that, you know, for somebody like this, they need to go in until she's completed a program.
She needs to do it daily, does she?
Yeah, absolutely. And rebounding, I would say she doesn't have to do anything strenuous, just popping up and down on a rebounder, not even with her feet leaving the mat. But you know, rebounding is the best thing for lymph. I also would say with lymph, consider things like mangister. Mangister's a blood cleansing herb that really works on lymph. It gets lymph flowing. And you can do that in tea. It tastes like, it's very earthy, a bit like beetroot, but it tastes kind of dirty beetroot-ish. So it's not the best taste.
Could you spell it for me?
Manjistha, Mangister. It's Ayurvedic. You might find some really good stuff on John Dwillard's website. It's called lifespa.com. He's an Ayurvedic practitioner, but he's also a chiropractor. And he does like functional integrative medicine. He does a lot on lymph, and he's got some beautiful webinars, videos, short 20-minute is. Obviously he's selling his products, but Mangister is is the stuff I learned from him.
What is he called, John?
John Dwillard. But if you just type in life, it's www.lifespa.com. That's easier than his name to spell. And just look what he's doing. Have a look at lymph, because her lymph will be stagnant if she's not, you know, it depends what she's doing physically. But, you know, if she's not running or jumping or, you know, swimming or whatever and getting things moving that way, obviously she's gardening, but that's kind of intermittent, isn't it? You don't go out gardening for 20 minutes every day.
No, she walks her dog. That's
okay. All right. So she's doing great. So she's doing some things, but it's all worth looking at, especially with mold. My lymph was absolutely stagnant. And John Dwillard on LifeSpa, he does something called the Colorado Cleanse, which is a fortnight's program to get your lymph working and get your digestive system back on track. I mean, a digestive system, to all intents and purposes, looks superficially like it's okay, but I'd question it. But you know, what he's doing is superb on that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's what she's going to do in it, and I get she's totally committed. But I think you've got to detox. So I don't think you could do anything without detoxing her, because I think each time you address her gut in whatever way, the bugs are going to come back because the system's toxic. Right, which makes the system acidic. Bless her. She hasn't had a mum all day.
No.
Bless her. Yeah. So does that help, Marta?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. Just so much learning. I've never actually. It's my most complex client, and I don't feel like I can help.
Bless you. All right. So let me just see if there's any. I'll tell you what I'll do, girls. There's a few questions here that I actually missed from last time. So what I'll do is, anybody who feels they need to hop off now, that's great, because we have gone over time, and I really, really appreciate that you've stayed as long as you have. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through these questions. They'll be on the recording. So, you know, if you have to hop off, honestly, it's fine. But what I'll do is I'll just go through all these questions from 3:30 or whenever it was, and I'll just answer them all. Oh, Charlotte set up a Facebook group. Brilliant. Thank you, Charlotte. It makes a good thing to do, because then you can keep in touch with each other and you can help each other. And I'm happy to join if you want me to, but I'm also happy to take off and leave you to it if you're happy for that as well. So what is it? Bioresonance. So there ain't any questions actually. It's kind of comments about the comments about the vaccine and it reacting. Yeah, I mean, Indra talked about the vaccine and I'm seeing exactly the same.
And could I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
What with the omega-3/6 ratio, what would you, for someone with pyroluria, what would you really be kind of looking for them? I mean, I know it's going to depend on what's already going on in their body, but is there a kind of rule of thumb?
I normally would start with omega-6 because they're always toxic.
Yeah.
And I would see how they react to that. If they can't afford a test, and 400 quid is like a lot of money, isn't it? I would start with omega-6 and start some detox, and then I'd move to I'm ready to do an omega complete, it's called. I can't remember who the company is, but it's got 3, 6 and 9 in it, so I often move to that. Nikki does something completely different. She gives EPA on its she gives a high ratio EPA to DHA on a morning and a high ratio DHA to EPA at night. It might be the other way around actually, because DHA is stimulating. So yeah, high DHA, low EPA morning, and the other way around at night. I don't necessarily do that because for me it's a bit fussy. You know, when you've got binders and you've got antivirals and all this and you know all the other stuff, patients just get confused with it all. So I try and keep it simple. So I tend to either use the Omega Complete, and they've got an Omega Complete and an Omega Complete Ultra or something, so the one's stronger than the other, or I start them with omega-6 and then I might add something like Mega EPA later on, or even the iGenis EPA, so there is no DHA, especially if they're much older, because what we find with somebody who's really inflamed, who was it that did that research? I'm trying to think the doctor who did it, and he put it in a book. It was about chronic fatigue and omegas, and Dr. Perrin, who does the Perrin technique, he uses that method, and he just gives EPA, no DHA, to all his chronic fatigue clients. So sometimes I do that. If they've got a lot of inflammation, I don't want to exacerbate that even more, so I will do that. But yeah, it's working out what's right for that particular person, and then seeing what symptoms are they getting. So if they get more inflamed with one thing, I would use the other. Sometimes I use I'm not using it now, but sometimes I used the fatty acid test from Cinzino, and I did their program for 6 weeks. But as I said, what I found with that program is everything's stabilized on the test results, but they didn't feel significantly better, and I want them to feel better. So that's the key reason I stopped doing it. So I hope that helps.
Thanks.
So it's been a lot of sharing, which is amazing. That's great. Yeah, fantastic, girls. That's been a really good session. Has anybody else got anything really burning that they would like some help with? Or
there were a few questions from before, that like from 1:30. There were a few questions in the thread.
1:30. I thought I'd done the ones at 1:30. I did that before lunch.
No, there were quite a few about the question about the sauna. There was.
Oh, sorry. Right, hang on. Let me find them.
Not many, but
let me find them.
I'll go through it. 2 something. Let me just go.
Oh, I've got one here that I've not seen. Do you test levels of stomach acid before supplementing? Not necessarily. I just go on my questionnaire and I ask them questions like, how do you feel after you have a paleo meal? where you've got, or not a paleo meal because they wouldn't necessarily have the combination of foods, but if they were going to a restaurant and they were having steak and maybe pasta, because that was the option, how would they feel after that meal? Because if they've got low stomach acid, they're going to feel heavy and lethargic after that. And so I ask them those kind of questions. I look at profile 1 in our questionnaire because that all those symptoms are low stomach acid. So the more they've got going on there, the more it tells us that. Charlotte's also asked best way to supplement hydrochloric acid in kids. I generally don't supplement hydrochloric acid in kids because you can't do the hand holding with them, because in kids you're generally dealing with the parent, and so the parent's got a big responsibility on finding out what's going on with the kid after they've given the supplement. And I think it's quite dangerous to give hydrochloric acid to kids. So I tend to wait for the B6 and zinc to do the job. But then I'd encourage things like ginger, the warming spices, cumin, coriander, clove, garlic, if the kid will eat garlic, because all of those things will stimulate stomach acid. The Chinese call that improving digestive fire. I might even give them some Swedish bitters, liposomal bitters, because that'll get the whole of the digestion going. But again, it depends on their phenol status, because if they can't do phenols, they can't do herbs. And so they'll react. So they're the kind of ways I work around it. But normally, in a small kid, once you start supplementing B6 and zinc, everything comes back online. It's really quick. You can't believe the difference in them. Far infrared sauna, that was it. Thanks, Sylvia, for that. The name of the sauna that we use is TheraSage, TheraSage. And again, it's coming from the States, so use Shippy too. Enteris gel for kids, that's one I missed. Normally, I think the Enteris gel is given first thing on the morning. I have given it at night time for kids, just because it's great for when the gallbladder and the liver are throwing out their toxins early morning. But it does say on the paraphernalia that to give it on the morning or any time between meals, actually, because all these binders have to be given between meals. So I think you've got to work with whatever the mum can do when it's kids. You know, and just find a space. It might be as they're coming home from school, because that'd be the time when the kids are starting to get hungry. So you'll give them that, and then when they come home, they can have something to eat, because they're always ready for the biscuit jar then, aren't the kids, bless them. Aqua Vortex, helpful for the elderly when the desire to drink drops off. Yeah, as long as they're mobile enough to go to the sink and keep filling up, because I think with the elderly, what happens is they lose their thirst mechanism. It's like I don't think it's just that they stop drinking when they're elderly. I think they've always been a low water person or a low fluid person. And it's just, I don't know, does it come from lack? Because they didn't have much in the war, did they? Or you know, is it some other reason? But I think they don't have the thirst mechanism. So often, that can be poor electrolytes, especially when they're getting very elderly, because the cell membranes are not functioning effectively enough. And so sometimes giving electrolytes can really support the fact that they will want to drink.
Could you recommend a good one?
I just use Body Bio do one called E-Lyte, which is a capital E-LYTE.
Oh yeah, yes.
Which is liquid. Seeking Health do one that's a powder.
Yeah, it's expensive though.
Is it? Yeah. You see, I've just used Body Bio because it's cheap. Website for the emotional detox course. What I'll have to do is I'll have to message you that when I send you the links for these recordings, which will be on YouTube. What I'll do is I'll send you the website link for that, because I haven't got it yet. I know Wendy starts it up either yesterday or today or tomorrow. It's in this category. I have got Wendy's website address, which I can send you. And it's just called Myers Detox. So if it's up there, it'll already be on Myers Detox site. But what is Wendy? She's just training as a naturopath. She's been a nest practitioner for donkey's years, and she's an absolute dream of a person on detox. She's interviewed all the best people on her podcast on detox. But the emotional detox program, I think, will be second to none because it's Nikki's work, and she's just handed it over. She's not doing it anymore. Oops, I've just lost where did I?
And you've mentioned about calcium, never supplement calcium, but I can't remember why.
That wasn't to do with this with pyroluria though, was it? I used to mention not supplementing calcium at college, but I don't think I said it.
There's something about calcium. I might put in all.
Okay. I mean, the thing with calcium is this person is highly stressed. So all the magnesium is going out through the stool and the urine, predominantly the stool. So they're going to be very depleted in magnesium. And then what happens is the body, due to the stress response and due to the acidity, because of all the TH2 stuff, the viruses, the mold, etc., the body's going to be extremely acidic. And so what the body does is it buffers that acidity with calcium. So it pulls it out of the bones and the muscles, and then it uses it in the circulation to keep the pH of the blood at 7.4, because if we move 0.1 away from that, we're dead. Simple. And so that's another homeostatic mechanism. And so if you start supplementing calcium, then the body's going to just dump calcium in pockets, and it dumps it in the arteries of the heart, it dumps it in the kidneys. If you've got oxalate crystals because you've got a yeast overgrowth, then the oxalate crystals pick it all up and turn it into stones, and then it ends up in the kidneys. So you've just got to be really careful with calcium. So I would only ever supplement calcium if someone's got osteoporosis or some condition where they absolutely need it.
Yeah, because she's bought herself those like seaweed-based calcium powder, and then she's been, I think she's taking it recently because she's no there. Obviously, she has no dairy diet, but I think she gets enough calcium from other sources anyway. So seaweed is a no-no.
Well, if it's a food, it's not a no-no. If she's taking seaweed as a food, that's fine. But if she's taking it as a supplement, I definitely wouldn't advise it as a supplement. No, and she just needs educating actually, that because she's not eating dairy, don't mean she's not getting calcium, because that's not bioavailable anyway, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
But if she's having the vegetables and the nuts and seeds, then she's getting plenty of bioavailable calcium, which will do her far more good than the dairy. And it's a matter of educating her, isn't it?
You did say before about putting someone on a low lectin diet, and I just kind of wondered.
Yeah, the people who've got the cholecystokinin feedback loop issues or the sluggish bile, what we find on the detox program is they're all lectin intolerant. And I'm not sure whether it's the lectin intolerance that starts the problem off, or whether the lectin intolerance comes as a result of the digestion being shot, which will probably be the right thing, won't it? And then the gallbladder gets sluggish because the lectins affect the bile flow.
Oh.
So yeah, it's that mechanism, and it's horrendous, to be honest. Lectin intolerance is horrible, and they have to do paleo. You can't do anything else because you've got to get all the grains out, and then the nuts. It's when you look at autoimmune paleo, that's low lectin.
Yeah, so that's why she feels better on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So she's probably lectin intolerant.
Oh, she just started red lentils as well because she loves them. I was like, oh my, okay.
Well, do you know, the worst thing I saw with lectins, which, I mean, we see loads in the emotional detox program, don't get me wrong, but the one patient that I had, and it's not that long ago, it's only about two or 3 months ago, she came with all sorts of issues, and she's breastfeeding, and she's putting loads of antimicrobials in to kill gut bacteria and breastfeeding at the same time, and had no idea what harm she was doing to a baby. And so we had a long chat about that, but she turned out to be quite sluggish in the bile, and lectin intolerant, and she was living on quinoa, literally living on quinoa. She had it every meal. She was making quinoa breakfast, then she was having quinoa because she wasn't eating any other grains, and she was doing it for the protein because her body wouldn't allow her to digest the protein. She was feeling heavy and sluggish after it because her stomach acid levels were low, and because she was mixing her foods. You know, when you've got this kind of thing going on, often if you do the food combining diet, so you separate your grains and your starches from your meats, you get much better digestion. So you would have your meats with your vegetables as if you were having a paleo, and then if you have grains, you have them with vegetables. So, you know, like your lentil pasta, I know there's some protein in that, but you would do that with vegetables, which is what I do. And then your fruit you have completely separate, and that really takes the strain off the digestion. But with the lectins, you've got to really cut right back on everything. But this
quinoa.
Quinoa is the highest lectin food going.
Is it really? Oh, I thought it was a seed.
It is, but seeds are full of lectins, and lectins are really inflammatory. Lectins are the things that the plant creates to stop weevils, etc., from eating them, because they don't want to be eaten. You know, they're plants, aren't they? Living plants, and so they create lectins. When we've got dodgy digestion, lectins are the thing that are the most problematic for us.
Can I just say something? I did something at college at the NCA about lectins and the blood type diet, and that was fascinating. And so if you look at the different blood types, I don't know what blood type your client is.
Oh, no idea.
Is she O? Is she blood type O? Do you know? No.
I really don't know. Never asked the question.
Okay. Well, you might find that, you know, sort of from a blood type standpoint, she's just intolerant to these things because they're not the lectins that her blood type can tolerate. So, I mean, that's looking into, gosh, what's his name?
It's Diademo. Good point, Sue. Thanks for that.
Diademo. And I wrote an essay and got slaughtered in college with that because there's not an awful lot of peer-reviewed research. But I was absolutely convinced by it, and I still follow it now. And I'm group O, and I you know, I just don't go anywhere near the lectin foods that are not right for group O. The other thing I wanted to ask while I've got the microphone, yeah, I have all of the above, and you know, I'm actually doing a naturopathy course at the moment, and I'm doing an Ayurvedic module, and been speaking to my very close friend Sabina, and who's an Ayurvedic expert, and she's sort of singing the praises of khichdi all the time.
And that's what the Colorado cleanse is all about, Sue.
Yeah, I know, but I tried it, and you know, once I tried it and it seemed okay, the next time definitely wasn't okay. I had a kind of a sleepless night, and I looked and it says it's low histamine but medium oxalates.
Yeah, and I mean, there's
kidneys when I ate it, and I thought, is it something? Am I getting a kidney infection or something? And so,
I think, well, I would say in that respect, then you've got to support your kidneys when you're doing it, and you would do that with the herbs, because these Ayurvedic herbs do all of that. But like we go, all right, khichdi, and we just take it, which is what I did, Sue. Exactly. Yeah. It's also, I mean, it's not high lectin, but I find certainly with that to reduce the lectins and the oxalates, if you pressure cook it, it's much better. I bought a what they call it pot, not a one pot, what's it called, you know, the one instant pot, for that reason. I didn't.
If you soak it more, does that reduce it?
Absolutely it does. So yeah, any kind of, I mean, they say with the lectins, if you want to eat lectin foods and you're lectin intolerant, you must pressure cook them.
Oh, okay.
And this is Gundry's work. Gundry's got the job. I think his book is The Plant Paradox.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's getting slated at the minute, but it's what he's doing is very similar to blood type diet. He's not looking at blood types, obviously, because he's not looking at secretor status or anything, but you've got some good points here, absolutely, Sue. I mean, I must admit, I didn't buy into that at the time, partially because how can we really consider ourselves to be, from a food perspective, type O, type A, whatever, because we're all kind of multinational now, and we're not even in the same place where we originated from.
Yeah.
And that's built around, you know, where we all stayed in one place from, you know, birth to death. And also because my own experience at that time taught me I'm a type O, but I function much better on a type A diet. But that could be my inheritance, and it also could have been the fact that I had gastroparesis. And my gastroparesis has only just fixed itself, you know, and so I might find in the next 6 months that I'll come off a vegan diet, you know, so I can't actually say yay or nay to that, but I really respect the fact that you brought it in, and actually it's good, I think, to pick up Adimo's work.
I could own the chapter on blood type O and just, you know, tick all the foods, and they are all the ones, apart from the dairy. I can't have any of the dairy. But you know, there are no grains in there, there are no nightshades, so
And to be honest, Sue, I'm the same, but I can't do the heavy I can't do the meats, so you know, I end up pretty stuck, so I have to be, I mean, I don't have to be vegan. I could take betaine and eat the meats, but I'm choosing not to.
Right.
It's interesting. I mean, I love Adimo's work, but the thing is, it never stood the test of time in the research. No one ever picked it up and did any discernible studies on it, and he hasn't either. He's kind of, it's almost like he's written that book and he's done the research on his patients, and then he's gone off to do the genetic work, so because that's been more appealing, and then he opened up that genetic thing that Angela and I did, and it's fascinating, so really is, and he's such a clever man. But why is he not kind of,
he's probably fed up with it all, like, you know,
maybe
how much corruption there is.
Absolutely, Sue, you're probably right.
Probably wants to spend more time doing what matters and not, you know, licking everybody's you know what's.
Yeah, probably right, and that's another story for another day, isn't it? So I think I've answered everything. Have you got enough information, Marta, to go away and actually do something constructive with this lovely lady?
Lots of ideas, so I think I know what I should do next. I'll probably email you for the links if I try to take all the notes, but
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely, no. And really, Carl, we have gone over time, so really, really appreciate everybody's time, because you have just sat here and, you know, and this last session's just been amazing that, you know, people have kind of jumped in. And
thanks so much, Anne. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's been really good. So I'll say goodbye to everybody. I'll go and upload these to YouTube. I'll send you what I've promised. I'll send you the links to them. And Wendy Myers Detox, you want the link to that as well. So I'll send you that, Wendy's link and Nikki's link. And then at least you've got everything then. You know, and anything you want, you know, you think, oh, that might be right for the client, at least you've got everything there. So hopefully.
You could also send us the links to those ladies who do bioresonance as well.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, okay, fantastic.
And the link to the emotional detox.
Yeah, that's Wendy Myers. Yeah, I'll be sending you that. That's fabulous. All right.
Okay, thank you so much. It was brilliant.
Thank you, everyone, for an absolutely amazing day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.